We're now live with Team Joe Barr. Joe Barr, you've just completed the Silver State 508. From myself, the crew, and all of our followers on Facebook, I would just like to wish you congratulations on that. Joe, before we start, for those just joining our page, what do we do?
My name is Joe Barr and we're a World Endurance Cycling team, and we're here in Reno, Nevada in the US, and we've just completed a 500-mile endurance race in the desert and in the altitude of Nevada.
Joe, you're used to large distances, 3,000 miles, 1,000 miles. Surely 500 miles is a walk in the park.
Yeah, but this is a particular type of 500 miles. We've got a lot of elevation here, and we've got a lot of desert. The nature of the route itself is it's got these enormous, long, straight, flat roads in the middle between the high altitude mountains. So it's a very particular type of 500. So it is, and for us guys coming from sea level, it's not easy just to manage all of that.
For sure. Before you came to this race, how did you prepare?
My training is pretty much geared towards all the races. One of the things that we did for this race, we were conscious that we needed a little bit more speed, and I made quite a number of adjustments to the bikes to start off with. As far as training was concerned, I done longer sections of high level, high intensity, just to try and limit my losses on the big, long, flat sections in America. It's one of the problems that it brings for me. It's okay when it starts going up, but I got to limit my losses on the big flats.
For sure. And you came to this race, you haven't actually raced this race before, so we came to this race with actually very little knowledge of the race per se, but you bring with you the knowledge that you've gained over obviously from your youth, the whole way through your cycling career. But what we've learned over the last, there's a big car beside us, so what we've actually learned over the last since 2009, effectively, you completely changed the way that you race. Looking at the start of the race, then we left at 5 a.m. On Friday morning. The first section is a 28-mile unsupported section, and a very, very large climb. Unsupported is very strange for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not actually an aspect that I'm not comfortable with. But the reality is, for this race, I can see from an organiser's point of view why they have to do that. It was a neutralised section for the first 6 miles, but as soon as that neutralised section stopped, you literally turned onto the first elevation of the first big climb, and you go right up to over 6,500.
Yep, the Geiger Pass is quite a...
it is a severe climb, so it is, and it's... There's a lot of hairpin and switchback on it, and there's when you get out over the top, it doesn't actually descend down that far. You descend down into Virginia City, but it's when you actually navigate through that city that it actually descends even further down into this canyon that brings you out onto Highway 50. And it was a 60-mile-an-hour descent down and through that canyon and past. But we were quite lucky because the climb took so long to get up. The day had broke, so we had daylight going down in. I was a little reserved because I thought it was going to be darker in the canyon, but I was in the front group going out over the top, and fortunately for me I can descend pretty well, so I really wanted to get down into the canyon and just leave everything behind, and just it's safer to be in the front because I could control my descent. For that first climb then, you were on your Evo bike. Tell me about your gearing and your tyre choice on that bike. On that particular bike, we chose quite a low gear, and Campagnola brought out it's not new, but it's not many people know about it. It's an Evolution chainset, so we actually can alter the gearing. So I had a 36 inner ring on, and I used 36 and a 27 rear sprocket for all of that climb, just to try and keep real good pedal revolution. There was a few attacks went on it, but they didn't really amount to anything. They went off, and I knew the acceleration was too fast. And 2 hairpins later, they were back again and whatever. So I just held the rhythm and I stayed in the front group. The tyre choice we used on that particular one was we used a Veloflex. It was it's a clincher, but we used the ultra tubes inside it. We were on deep sections as well, because I wanted to try and blend climbing and then try and gain a little bit in the descent as well.
For sure. when you came off that climb, you finally met your crew. It must have been a happy moment for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always very reserved about unsupported. It's sometimes, we're a very small item on those big highways, and I don't really like it whenever all the, there's a lot of traffic around you, and that just happens. As people are going to work and doing stuff so it's, you have to be very careful, and I don't like it. So we're so used, with the team car there all the time. There's that element of protection and safety around it. But as I said, earlier, I can understand from an organizer point of view why they had to do that. So.
You changed onto the TT bike. The next 70 miles was effectively pretty flat. So, why did you choose a TT bike for that section?
Well, at the same time, I'm trying to get a little bit more aerodynamic, and I'm trying to work a lot more on the TT bike. Coming from mainstream, we tend to just be road orientated all the time, and the nature of these big long straights in the States, you have to get more aerodynamic and have to get more speed in the flat, because some of these guys are so fast in the flat. I could lose 10 minutes in one section. Some of the flat sections are 20 odd miles long, so you're going to lose a chunk of time.
At 99 miles, we changed then onto the Evo bike again, a climb bike. Perhaps a wee bit too early before the.
Well, I think that's what we're talking about now is this is a rookie race for me. I've never been here before. I understand it a lot better now, obviously. And if someone said to me right now, is there a few changes that I would have made in relation to the strategy of the bikes? Yes, for sure there is. But I think in general terms, we done our homework pretty good. I say we got it 80% right, and then we were able to fix it and manage it as we went along. I mean, it's difficult to try and read one of these races from a landscaping point of view unless you've actually been across it. So if I was ever to come back here, for sure I would make a few changes. But I think in general we got it pretty good.
We're about 130 miles now into the race. We're now going up to the Carroll Summit, as we like to call it, the treacle climb. The road surface was treacle.
Yeah, I know, this is really hard. I didn't really get a proper feel for just how severe it was, because I was just so focused on trying to keep the speed and trying to keep everything right and breathe. The whole process of managing the altitude here, was a process for me this time, and I was very mindful of how I needed to deal with that. And we've gone through a fairly rigorous preparation. Andy, who unfortunately wasn't able to travel with us this time, has really put together a protocol for that. So we focused a lot on that, but I didn't really realise how much it was ascending until I was on the way back, and it was like 40 miles an hour all the way back down in that canyon. So it's it was just relentless. So it was pretty much like riding in Ireland on the bog road, where it's just dead. So it was like that, yeah.
For sure. And then we had a long flat section. It got pretty hot there as well, pretty dusty. Yeah. How do you deal with the heat?
I'm pretty good in the heat, actually. I like the heat. It's not really the heat that's the issue for me. You have to be very mindful in the desert with the dust. It's so easy, for your whole breathing system to get choked up with the dust, because there's an element of dust you can't even see in the desert. It's pretty particular to that environment. So I noticed that even in the nighttime when it started to really get cold, I could feel, even with managing it, you could still feel the effects of it in your throat. And it's so easy to get a bronchial issue there.
You were holding first place then at this stage overall and in your category. We had Chunky Monkey just behind us on his TT bike. He had pushed the TT bike the whole way. What do you think of that?
I was a bit shocked. I was a bit shocked he did that, but at the end of the day, he's a young guy, and the one thing about it is he's got a huge power. That's for sure. I came here to try and race, and I came here to try and win. And I set off meaningful, and I think that he maybe misgauged me a little bit, because he probably didn't know me and whatever. But I think on the climb out of Austin is really where he struggled, because I could see him. Maybe he was at 5 minutes, maybe 6 minutes on the coming up in the hairpins behind me. I could see him, but he for some reason or other he chose to stay on his time trial bike. But one thing I will say, when he caught me at the turn at 250, he was trucking whenever he fast. Like, he was very fast.
So we descended out of Austin, and we were then making a slow climb and then a flat section to Eureka. We were now going into nighttime. It was unsupported until the turn at Eureka. It got very cold then, didn't it?
I mean, the whole race changed then, really. All of a sudden, the first thing was there was, in the daytime, the temperatures didn't climb to the levels I was expecting them to, which was one thing. But whenever we went into the nighttime, the next obvious thing started to appear, and that was the temperature was starting to drop drastically.
Significantly,
the other way.
yeah.
It was a significant difference in a very short period of time, and that took me a little bit unawares, because I knew it was going to be cold in the nighttime, but I didn't really think that it was going to drop to that level so quickly.
We were up at 7,000 feet.
Yeah.
Altitude, we don't get much of it in Ireland, do we?
No, we certainly don't. And whenever you're trying to push the bike at high heart rates on those slopes with no air, walking around is one thing, like, but when you're trying to actually compete and race in it, it varies from individual to individual. And I'm very lucky now that we understand it now, even though we don't have it. And every time you come to race with these races with altitude, you learn something more. So we're just slowly adding our knowledge, to understand how to manage it, as opposed to take it as a problem and just accept it as a problem. So we've now come to understand better the hydration process.
How did we hydrate? Like, how does hydration affect your altitude?
Well, altitude, the end product of altitude sickness, like, usually has an origin of poor or not very well managed hydration. And this time, like, we got the electrolyte counts and the hydration volumes exactly correct. And the one thing about, there's also a process in relation to breathing and stuff like that we now understand.
Tell me about that. How quickly can simply one of the best products we have is air.
Yeah.
Breathing.
Yeah.
So simple.
Yeah.
How does that affect your oxygen saturation?
Well, the thing, when you're at the top of these climbs, like, I'm sure there's some of the footage that I haven't looked at it yet, but I'm sure there's some of the footage that showed whenever you're up at 7+, how that affects you when you're stuck on that hill, like, because you got to remember, like, that climbing a climb in Ireland, that's a fraction of that distance. You're up very quickly. You're on these climbs for long periods of time, because A, you can't push to the high levels because you just can't breathe, and secondly, if you go too fast too quickly, you're going to blow on them. So there's a number of key elements that you have to manage, and I'm getting better at that, like. But one of the things in relation to oxygen saturation, like, we found a way that we obviously measure it. We have an electronic tool for measuring the saturation, and when it drops down, like, we go back to 2000.
Does it scare you when it drops down?
Not anymore. And in 2012, it's documented knowledge, the experience I had with altitude in the Rockies. But that again, we've now understood that. We've moved way beyond that, and I go through the process. Does it still affect me? Yes. Then I apply the process. This time the protocol. Did we get it 100% right? No, but I think we got it 80% right. And the thing about it is then that the other thing is the knowledge that we've got now allows Gillian, like, to work out the volumes and to work out the electrolyte count, like, to offset it. So 80% right, and then we sort of made up the rest of it as we went along, bit by bit, and managed it. And the way the environment that we have in the team now, the way the team operates or whatever, like, we're very complementary to each other, like, so we kind of negotiate our way through it. Sometimes being the rider, like, you get a little bit heel dug in and you don't want to do things or whatever, like, but we've moved beyond that now, like, and the team totally trust each other, and that's, to me, that's one of the key aspects of keeping it moving forward, and basically just not allowing yourself to circle down the drain hole and listen, because that would have been a big fault of mine in the past. And I think that is one of the key aspects that has helped us to overcome this aspect that we refer to as altitude.
We were beginning to pull away from the rest of the field. As much as you were struggling, we were beginning to pull away. Yeah. We then began to descend away from Eureka, off the flat section, and then we had a long climb up the Treacle to Austin. that went on for hours, it felt like, didn't it?
No, I mean, it was by far the hardest part of the race, and I reached down to get a drink, and I normally just squish the bottle to get the cork opened, frozen solid. So I that was at that point I realised this is very serious now, like, and I also knew if I'm getting it like this, everybody else is getting it like this. So I was still of the mindset that maybe if I could, just keep the pressure loaded on, that he would crack, because he was making a few what I would call rookie mistakes, in that he was riding the time trial bike whenever he could have made it a little bit easier for himself, and he was going to experience the same cold that I was experiencing. So I think that both of us were at the point in the race like where we were both on the limit, but I also know that the nature of a lot of the American riders they are so fast in the flat, and that was how he demonstrated when he went past, that he was very fast on the flat. But I just thought that if I could keep the pressure loaded on those hills, and when it got really severely cold, that possibly he might crack up. But he, in all fairness, he didn't, and he regrouped himself, and his crew regrouped him, and as far as I'm concerned, he deserved to win for sure.
We were continuing then off Austin. We had a long descent down and a long flat section then. So this was now -3 degrees.
Yeah, it was cold. It was, we had pretty much everything that we had in use. We put it all on, and it just got to the point where I couldn't, the whole message of what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep it moving forward, and I don't really want to stop. I don't want to give time away, because it's too hard to get it back. And to stop that from happening, I put on a standard North Face, duck down jacket out over the top of everything. I couldn't, on the descents, like when you're going down into those descents, so if you're trying to push on, there's an element of, yes, I want to push on, but there's also a little bit of reserve caution, because at the end of the day, if you drop it, then the whole race is over. So you're trying to balance all of that. The big problem is braking and gear shifting, and as a rider, I'm not the norm. I shift gear a lot, probably 4 or 5 times more than most people, and it's just how I race. And my hands were starting to really freeze up on the back, and I couldn't shift gear. So I was going down into corners and finding myself that the gear was too high, and then I couldn't get the bike I couldn't shift down in the corner to get it to accelerate out. So there, the bike was just doing stupid stuff. So I pulled over a few times, and we changed different types and layers of gloves, like to try and find one that would work. And Gillian had cut some, like hand warmers, like they're like small patches that go in. So we were filling the insides of the glove with the patches and stuff, like to try and keep the circulation moving. And
one of the great tips for crews as well is we have heaters in the car. We can heat your gloves as well.
That's what we were doing. Like obviously you guys in the car were running all the heat inside my fingers and my gloves, so we were rotating the gloves. We
were hot swapping, so to speak.
We were hot swapping our gloves to try and keep my fingers. It's all about keeping the circulation moving. Like so, I was lucky enough. My feet held out; they weren't too bad. We had double layer neoprene on, the max that we had to put on. I had some of the new thermal leg warmers from Powerhouse, and they were fabulous. I didn't even have to put on full tops over the top. They absolutely done the job. But it was just the upper torso area, like, just got so cold, because obviously the mass is traveling down into the cold air, and you're descending so fast.
We had to climb up to the Carroll Summit, the highest point in the race. Yeah. Your bottles froze. You're wearing a balaclava, and it literally froze on your face. This was super cold.
Yeah, I mean, a few times have I ever experienced that level of cold, and especially in such a short period of time, really. But basically, as I breathed through the balaclava, it froze. So I had to actually keep scraping the ice away from the balaclava as well, like as we descended down. Like, but again, I would go back to say, was it 100%? No. Did we get 80? I think so. Maybe 85. And that's we're starting to talk about the small increments that sort of move us forward all the time, and we're steadily building more knowledge and more understanding of how we can do it and where we can close the gaps. And all told, we came here pretty much as rookies to a race that has a lot of history, and it has a lot of diversity in its course. and some of it suits me, some of it doesn't suit me. So to come away with the result that we've come away with, like this is our second World Cup win in 1 year. So I don't think that it's possible, for me to sit back and say, oh, we didn't do this or we didn't do that. I think we're very, very good at what we did.
We're now descending off the Coral Summit, a long, quick, fast descent, and then we actually descended into the daytime. You must have been happy to see the daylight.
Oh yeah. When you come out of the dark, those big long straight sections in the daytime when we were heading out, I knew we were having them back, but it's a completely different race on the way back because you can't see them. And it's amazing the tricks that your head tells you, like when you can see them, and that just goes away. So all you're trying to do is look at the road in front of you. But I was glad to get to the daylight. Like, I knew then that the likelihood of me catching him was not great, but there was still the possibility that he could blow up.
Yes.
So I was kind of watching two races. I was watching the one in front, and I was just keeping a mindful check on the two behind. So.
You had a big gap at this stage, 97 miles to go to the end of the race. You changed up back onto the TT bike into a headwind for about 30 miles or so.
Yeah.
It was pretty brutal, but you were happy. You knew you had that focus of the finish line in your head.
Well, we didn't have to push. I think when I got on the TT bike there to come back, we went down into that basin on the way coming back into Fallon.
It was like Mars, wasn't it?
It was like just weird landscape, and all the US military fighter jets are flying around over your head. Like it's a weird place. Like, and it's just like this road that goes through this basin that's desolate on the other side, and you can see it for a long, long, long way because you descend down into it. But the headwind blowing through the basin was just brutal. So rather than try to push, I was trying to hold 23, 24, 25 miles an hour steady all the time, and I sort of realised that I can't do that. If I do that, it's just going to be too much. So I backed it back down to 20 to get the Fallon, because I knew when we got the Fallon the direction was going to change, and even if it was going into a crosswind, it was just going to make a little difference. But as it turned out, the twist
was
in
a
the
wee
road,
bit more of a
tailwind.
tailwind.
Became more of a tailwind actually. Yeah. So
you rode that tailwind then until 28 miles to go to the base of the Geiger Pass, just up to Virginia City. You changed onto the climb bike. We had rode this climb before in our practice sessions. This was steep.
No, I mean, I think even in the recce sessions, I knew how it went up through the canyon, and I knew how severe it was. But understanding it with 480 miles in your legs, that's a completely different understanding. And the other thing is that last section from Fallon into that base where I changed the bike, it got incredibly hot. My legs and arms are badly burnt coming across that section, and I drank a lot, and that was another thing I think that contributed to our success as well. We've started to use ionized alkaline water, and we actually transported the machine here to the race, to make sure that we had it. And
alkaline water, so not all water is equal. How does that work?
No, water's not all water. We've changed the pH of the water, so we have a machine to process that. It helps with the hydration because the molecules are actually in smaller groups, so the whole system can uplift it more quickly and more efficiently. So we have been using that all through the race, and I actually used it in its raw form in that whole section across. I drank, I don't know, I must have drank maybe 600 mils in that section coming across just to offset it. But it was also a big contributing factor, and when you mix in our own products with that, it transforms the whole hydration process completely.
We were climbing up to Virginia City. It was a slow climb, 4 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour, but you made it to the top, and then Geiger Pass. When you reached Geiger Pass, you were ecstatic that you knew at this point you had made it.
I'm racing bikes almost too long right now, and one thing that I know from all my history is it's never over until it's over. You could be 5 miles from the finish and something silly can happen. But at the top of that hill, I knew that unless I absolutely dropped it on the descent to the finish line, we had the job done. And that climb is in two sections, and the section from Highway 50 up into Virginia City, the last kilometre is absolutely vicious. It's like I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's around 27% at the top. I mean, we all talk in Ireland about Malmore Gap, but I can assure you
this is beyond
I
it.
can tell you this is beyond Malmore Gap. Like, so it's a different type of hill. And when you come up you actually literally come up onto the city street, it just stops. It's just like, what happened to the hill?
We descended back into Reno, back to the finish line. How did you feel whenever you crossed the finish line?
Firstly, I was relieved that we got through it and we didn't have any really big issues in the whole race per se. Are these races difficult? Do they hurt? And is it a big workload for everyone in the team? For sure. But I was glad. The other thing that I'm really excited about is the fact that this is the first time we've ever won 2 World Cup races in 1 year. And to me, that's it has sort of moved us into a different, in my opinion, it has moved us into a different league, and that's not an easy thing to achieve. I'm trying since 2009 to do that, and it's taken year on year on year and year for us to keep building the experience and keep building the information and keep building the knowledge of how we can improve and how we can make these races work for us.
You always talk about we. How important is your crew?
To me, the crew is. If I don't talk about we, then I'm staying at home. The crew for me is. It's not possible for a rider to do these without a crew. But I think even from I only really talk about our own environment, and I think that our crew has gone beyond the term of crew. It's it's a completely gelled and bonded unit, and we trust each other to the absolute. We listen to each other, we compromise, and we do everything that's respectful to each other in a very controlled and organised manner. Like, we don't panic and we don't do stupid stuff, and to me that's the key element of this whole process. Do we get it right all the time? No, but then if we had it right all the time, then we would have nothing to learn, and that's why we keep coming back. We keep coming back to learn, and we'll be back for another one for sure.
So the big question, why do we do this? Why do you cycle?
Well, there's probably 3 or 4 answers to that, really. But the main reason is this is my life, really. Bike racing isn't something I do. Bike racing is me, really.
It's built in you from childhood, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And everywhere you come, like here today, and after the race and whatever, you get to talk to all the crews, and one of the nicest comments that we had was from the race organizer, who said we brought something special to the race, and that I don't know what the special is. Right, I don't really know what that is, but we've brought a presence for sure. We've brought a result, and we've brought all the brands that make us possible to the table.
For sure.
So
having a large following back home, from our fans, going live this time.
Yeah.
How does that change your race?
The whole concept of live feed and how social media is driving the world, not just what we're doing. We're just a very small grain of sand somewhere in the middle of all of that. But for what we're doing, it has just been a complete game changer. First of all, we're able to take what we do to anybody who has an interest to want to sit in their sitting room and watch it.
And we can show it warts and all.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you can all when we read the feedback. I mean, people probably think I don't read it all, but I actually do. I actually read everything that's given. We sit for hours, and in the evening time, I don't watch TV at home, but I read the stuff that people write because it's respectful to. They took time to write it, so I just want to take time to know who it is and what they said, and because that's all meaningful. It's all meaningful for someone like me who's raced my whole life. So I have a lot of respect for people putting their time into following us, and rarely
sharing and commenting.
Rarely do we get a bad comment, so it's all good for us, for sure.
For sure. Joe, what did you learn about yourself in this race?
It's not over yet.
You're 58.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of lead left in the pencil, isn't there?
Yeah, I was so close And talk is cheap, like, but we were so close to winning an overall here, so close. The difference when you talk, I talk to the other crew, and when you have that conversation, which the outside world don't get to have, the gap is like minuscule, and that's it. That this race was won and lost in a 15-minute window of decision making. That's what the difference was. But I will say that the other lad deserved to win, absolutely, 100%.
Strong rider.
He was better on the day for sure. But I'll meet him again for sure, and I hope I do. And that's what racing's about.
Yeah. But that's not to say bad of your own performance, Joe. It was 100%.
Oh no, like I said, did we get it 100% right? No. Did we get it 80%? I think yes. And we certainly made up the 15 that's in the middle somewhere. So I would say we got it 5% wrong.
For sure. Joe, what's next?
I'm not so sure about what's next. Certainly considering the World Championship, the 24-hour, for sure. I wasn't that, I didn't have it to the front of my head coming here. I wanted to come here. I wanted to race. As I say, we've got a sponsor here in California. It's really important for me to try to get to the US to race, and I did, and we've delivered a good result. And I think they're all happy for what we did. So whether I come back to do the 24-hour World Championship or not, but for 2018 and 2019, we got some exciting stuff that's about to come out in the next 10 days. So I'm not going to talk about it now, but we'll get to that when it's time.
We now also have our endurance workshop. We're now bringing our level of expertise, I suppose, to people wanting to get into the endurance cycling circuit. We're going to have workshops. We're also going to have a range of how-to videos over the next couple of months, from everything how to change a tyre to how to win your first endurance race. Why the endurance workshop, Joe?
I think I've arrived at the place where it's time to give back. I carry around so much knowledge of all the years of racing. I don't think that there's many conversations that I would be excluded from if I had to have content for those conversations. So we go to the endurance races. It's a great environment to be involved in, and the people are so enthusiastic about what you're doing, and they're so enthusiastic to listen to what your opinion is and whatever. It was just the next natural step for us to say, well, look, rather than do all these sporadic questions and not being able to actually give complete definitive answers for what they were, because there's no time to do that, we decided, why don't we just run some workshops, and anyone who's interested and wants to come along, we'll talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about, and we'll explain it in full, so that when you walk away you have a complete answer for whatever that question is. Will we have all your answers in one day? No. I wouldn't think so.
But we will have over a big series of videos. We'll try and answer as much as we can. Joe, finally, is there any messages to anybody back home?
Well, I think there's a lot of messages to a lot of people back home. Firstly, all the crew here all have families at home, and they're all massive supportive. Everybody's away from home, so I'd like to say thank you to all our families who've supported us, firstly, and secondly to all the people that are now starting to feel like masses of people that take time to follow us, take time to write comments about us and send us messages and do all of that, and to all our our brands, all our sponsors who make everything that we have possible. It's just not possible without them. So they all know who they are. We've talked about them before. But in general, just a thank you just to the community of people that we seem to have generated. And it's really exciting times.
And your two sons, Ruben and Ross.
I didn't realise that they finished last night, because I've got so disorientated with the time difference here. I thought they were in bed asleep when we finished yesterday. They obviously weren't, and they were on Facebook. So I'm just going to say hi to them now, and I'll see them soon.
For sure. Joe Barr, from the team, from everybody on Facebook, I would like to wish you congratulations.
Thank you.
And we'll catch up with everybody again over the next month or so with our endurance workshop, our lives. We'll catch up with you again.
Yeah, I think we'll be talking to you before the next month.
Okay, everybody, like, share, comment below, and ciao.